So this video is a continuation from the previous video. So now that we've spoken about the exposure triangle, which is comprised of shutter, aperture, and ISO, we want to talk a little bit about exposure control, because the reality is your camera is doing its best guess at reading the light, and it's not always going to be right. So you have another means for making an adjustment to what the camera says to help give you that control. So on this particular camera, there's a button that's got a plus and a minus sign, and that is called exposure compensation button. It allows you to underexpose or overexpose the shot based on the camera readings. So on the digital here, the camera's in manual, and the shutter has been set to 250th of a second, and the f-stop has been set to 3.5, and the ISO has been set to 100. Okay, so based on those numbers, you take a shot, and based on whether it looks like it's properly exposed or not, you can make adjustments here. For this setting, you press the button and scroll the wheel at the same time. You have to hold this down and scroll the wheel. And what this will do is shift this little indicator to the left to underexpose it, or to the right to overexpose it. This is a full f-stop. Okay? So now, technically, rather than do this, since we're in manual mode, you can just come in and change your aperture or your shutter to achieve the same thing. But if you want to bracket, there's a way to, and this one has the bracketing set on, there's a way to allow the camera to automatically, when you squeeze the trigger, to do an underexposed stop, a properly exposed, and an overexposed. And when I was in college, we had a professor who did a lot of photography. And the thing he kept saying over and over and over again was bracket, bracket, bracket. And what that means is this. It means take one f-stop underexposed and one f-stop overexposed when you're shooting to ensure that you've captured the right exposure. Okay? And so that's just sort of a purposeful way to make sure that you're getting the right exposure in the moment. Now you can take it into Photoshop, take it into Lightroom and adjust it. But also with this, you can purposefully over and underexpose your shots for mood or artistic setting. Okay. So many DSLRs allow you to auto bracket every exposure each time you squeeze the trigger. And that is one of your settings. The I button, the info button, usually brings up that menu that allows you to do that. And I will do another video after this, now that we've talked about all these things, that will show you where some of these things are. And the camera will read the settings differently than you want to shoot it. In this case, adjusting your exposure will allow you to get the precise settings you want. And here is an example. Okay, so the top photo is this dude in his red shirt standing near a bridge, and this is what the camera said is the correct exposure, and this is him, the photographer, overexposing that setting by 3 f-stops, by 6. And then this is underexposing by 3 f-stops, underexposing by 6. And these are the resulting images that go with it. Now, personally, this is what is considered the correct exposure. I think this is a better shot. Maybe even this one, depending on what it's going to be used for. Because to me, this looks like this dude's got this bridge coming out of his head. I personally like the contrast of these overexposed shots better for focusing on, I'm assuming, the shirt or maybe the sunglasses, I don't know. But if you were in an ad and the sunglasses were supposed to be the shot, the shirt, this wouldn't be the shirt the guy was wearing. Okay, down here the same. The camera says this is the correct exposure. The photographer is underexposed by 3, by 6, overexposed by 3, overexposed by 6, and yeah, I mean, I think the correct exposure may be somewhere in the middle. To me, this is still a little dark on the side of her face, on the side of her arm. That could be achieved with fill light, which we will talk about that. But could also just be just one f-stop higher, could have helped correct some of the darkness here. This one is purposefully overexposed for effect. Because when you look at this, the overexposure, it makes it very clear that this is taken during the heat of the day. It's hot. It's sweltering hot. And that overexposure communicates that. Here's one that is underexposed for effect. And it makes the photo, the exposure of the photo match the subject. He's clearly pensive. He's thinking about something. He's worried. He's upset. This man's not happy. He's gripping his forehead in distress. So by underexposing it, we get to see the details of his face that are really hard to do when you're shooting someone with darker skin. You get to see the details of his face. This becomes despite the fact that this is brighter, this becomes your focal point in this beautiful shot. We don't need to see perfectly exposed sleeve of his shirt here that's dark. We don't need to see the other side of his arm to know that's what it is. There's just enough detail in here for his face to be perfectly exposed in this area and to create this beautiful scene that's underexposed that helps lend to the mood. Okay, so last slide in this PowerPoint, and this PowerPoint is posted in Blackboard for you to go back through it and access the links, as well as, go through this and look at it in your own time. So exposure is a combination of settings on your camera that allow you to control the way you capture the light. Once you have practiced enough, and I need to repeat that, once you have practiced enough, understanding their relationship and how to adjust them will become second nature. You get to where your brain just knows what to do. And that's, you guys know, you've had me by now, I read books by neurobiologists, and they say, practice is how you become proficient, okay? In the beginning, it can be frustrating because it's like learning a new language that is based on math. But it does become easier to understand the more you practice. And it is definitely worth the challenge to become a skilled photographer and look at that beautiful shot that someone took. No one got up in the morning one day, picked up a camera and said, I'm going to take that shot. That is years of study and experience and a passion for photography that created that shot. And you will get there. You will create some really great shots. And you just gotta practice and learn this stuff. We have started with the very bare minimum basics on this. We've talked about in theory what aperture, shutter, ISO, and exposure are. And now the next video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my DSLR out and I'm going to start showing you, I'm going to take some shots, making the adjustments and showing you how these things work together and the resulting shot. Okay. And then what you guys are going to do is you're going to do 3 assignments. The first one on Aperture, in which you work just with Aperture. If you're working with a cell phone, you are not going to be able to control your aperture. However, by doing that exercise and controlling your focus, you will still get an understanding for a little bit of what it does, because you're still going to be working with the aperture on your camera, which is going to be a very large opening. And then you're going to do an assignment on shutter speed, controlling your shutter speed and seeing what that does. and then you're going to work with your ISO. So once you've done and completed those 3 assignments for this course, you will have a better understanding. And I encourage you to go back after you've done those assignments and re-watch these videos, or at least go through the PowerPoint again. Okay, so you have the theory, now you're going to do the experience, then you're going to come back and reattach the theory to the experience, and it does begin to start to make sense. And then once you get to that point, then we can start looking at the math. And we're not going to do that in this class. I don't believe we're going to have time for that. But you will be able to start understanding the math and the reciprocity and the reduction ratios and things like that that will help you with your shots. Okay, so start there, and you'll get it. You'll get there. It's a little frustrating. I do know that. I do, believe me, I completely empathize. I have been in your shoes. I didn't just wake up one morning and become a skilled photographer. It has taken many, many years, many learning things the hard way. And that's why I wanted to teach these courses to you guys, to share things that I have learned over the years to help you take better shots sooner than I did. And you will. So just put this stuff into motion, put it into practice. Let me know if you have any questions. Complete the assignments, then go back through this information again, and it will start to stick and make sense, and your shots will become stronger and better, and you'll be closer to being a skilled photographer. Okay? See you soon.